Okay. This is either going to be one of the best videos I've done, or it's going to be one of the worst videos I've done. I'm using two computers today because um, Hewlett Packard and Best Buy, the Geek Squad, both say there's nothing wrong with my computer. They've analyzed it 6 ways to Sunday. So if the sound goes, remember to tell Best Buy there's nothing wrong with my computer. And I got to get off my soapbox. I've been on my soapbox for a couple of videos now. Um, But this is going to be an awesome video if it goes well, if the sound stays. Welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina, Kristina. This is where we read books and talk about books. No special effects here, no theme music, none of that fancy smancy stuff other channels have. And hey, we may or may not have sound either. So if you could please hang, don't forget to watch my Star Trek recaps on Fridays, my If Thens Friday afternoons, and Flashback Mondays, I just got rid of the magazine, where we talk about all the books in Romantic Times Book Review. I try and do at least 5 or 6. Sometimes I get carried away and do more. So the last couple have been 1670 books. So please go check those out. Today, in honor of October, I've got quite a few artifacts to show. If this goes right, if it goes wrong, hey, at least you'll have visual evidence. Use the closed caption if the audio goes, but please, please watch the video. Please. Today we are honoring, in honor of October, Anne Rice. And I do 100% believe that if it wasn't for Anne Rice, I wouldn't have all those. All those vampires. All those vampires back there. All of them. They're all paranormals. We wouldn't have it without Anne Rice. We owe it all to Anne Rice. And there she goes again. No matter what time of day, she doesn't tell time anymore. Hasn't told time in years. I should really just take the battery out. But it's kind of nostalgic. And how it still works after all these years, don't know. What it was a couple of years ago, I changed the battery. So now she rarely goes, she went 12 yesterday. She rarely goes all 12. But I have this. It's a little early, but I just sort of show it. And in this article, see, there you go, both computers. They're talking about Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder heat up Bram Stoker's Dracula, and then Christy Swanson and Luke Perry do the Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But she didn't continue. Then Sarah Michelle Gellar did it. So I just thought I'd show this. It was in with the books, so I just thought I'd show this. Oh, I forgot the movie. I have the movie. I was going to show the movie, but I'm not going to pause these because that's when most of the stuff goes wrong. So I do have the video, the original video with Tom Cruise. So please check that out. So this is a very, very dusty book. Let's see if I can open it. Off! Dust! Dust! Alright. So, this is the first article. If you haven't seen, it's online, and I've talked about it before. So I can't do I did a video on it already, so I'm not going to do another video. But you can go check it out. Tanya Huff. TANAHUFF. She did Blood Ties. And I'm telling you, that was a really, really good series. If Lifetime had not shown it at 1 o'clock in the morning, that series would have lasted a few years. It was really, really good. But back then, I didn't have the ability to record stuff. But it's on YouTube now, so you can watch all 2 or 3 seasons on YouTube. And there was also Nick at Night, not Nick at Night, Forever Night. With Anne Rice's Bloodsuckers, Lestat and Lewis currently making movie theater audience swoon in Interview with the Vampire, what better time to turn our attention to TV vampire who's a little ahead of the cinematic curve. I refer, of course, to Nick Knight, the vampire cop protagonist of Forever Night. The syndicated version of Night is only in its first season, but a quickly study of its twisted lineage reveals that it actually predates Francis Ford Coppola's ambitious 1990s stab at the vampire myth Bram Stoker's Dracula. Forever Night began in 1989 as Nick Knight, a 2-hour plot with CBS starring Rick Springfield, and it was later changed to the other guy, Geraint Wayne Davies. And just for reference, there's been lots of articles now. You shouldn't use these anymore because you should use the slips, or you should use the scrapbooks where you can use the removable tape. I put all mine in sleeves now, but this is the way I did it back in the 80s. So, sorry. And on the back, Anne Rice back at her old haunt. The only way I can get to my reality is through fantasy, says writer Anne Rice from her New Orleans mansion. And as the end of the century approaches, as well as the new millennium, Rice observed people feel compelled to return to the supernatural. And this is talking about Taltos. We will get to Taltos in a minute. And Rice. I don't know who it's coming across. Coming across there. Uh, and this is the one they made with Tom Cruise. The latest chapter in the Vampire Chronicle, Anne Rice is no longer turning pale at the prospect of Tom Cruise as Lestat in Interview with the Vampire. According to the producer David Griffin, Rice was shown the version of the movie last week and is now giving the Neil Jordan film a thumbs up. So, I honestly believe that, and we will talk. Remind me to come back to this. Anne Rice's naughty side. We will come back to this. Because, I don't even know if. Oh, it's upstairs. Exit to Eden. Alright. Interview with the Vampire. With the publication of her first book, Interview with a Vampire, in 1976, Anne Rice attracted an instant cult following. Rabid fans devout her sensual gothic thriller about a dandy-esque 18th century bloodsucker named Lestat, who turns a world-weary young man named Lewis and a 6-year-old girl named Claudia into vampires. With each successive volume in what has become known as the Vampire Chronicles, The Vampire Lestat, The Queen of the Damned, and Tale of the Body Thief, Rice's popularity has soared. And then there's a question and answer. Um, with Interview with a Vampire, with that at that time, I couldn't have written it. You never really discussed your struggles with alcohol. Oh, she was an alcohol. So, oh, let me just show this. The husband thought he was being cute. Okay. Queen of the Vampire. So that's the end of this. I don't know where. East of Eden has got to be upstairs. Oh, Interview with the Vampire. You remember that Titanic? It was magic hour at Oak Alley near the Louisiana Bayou, and the brain of Interview with the Vampire stood scanning the horizon around them. The frame plantation showed vestiges of vampirism. Fake mildew covered the outside of the Greek Revival mansion, while erst ivy camouflaged its whitewashed fence. Yes, ma'am. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come on. Uh, so what do you think? I hated doing this movie. Hated it, says Pitt. More than 6 months later at Musso and Frank's seedy fashionable joint on the boulevard. Loved watching it. Completely hated doing it. My character is depressed from the beginning to the end. 5.5 months of that is too much. As befitted the year's most anticipated movie. uh Interview with the Vampire was one of Hollywood's favorite non-Katzenbergian topics at the end of the summer. Stories raced through town based on sketchy reports of early test screenings, alternately claiming Interview to be brilliant and problematic. Concerns with excessive violence had already prompted Griffin and Jordan to exercise one scene and do reshooting an ending, ostensibly more faithful to the book that would allow for a sequel. But Tom Cruise did not do the sequel, as we all know. And I have that video to Queen of the Damned. I left them upstairs and I don't want to pause because that's when most of the audio problems happen. Um, so there's this huge article. Christian Slater. I have no idea where I got this from. Interview with the Vampire did 36.4 million for the weekend, averaging $13,000, or actually 14 because it was 13,975 per screen. It was running up against, it went at Christmas. They released it at Christmas. The Santa Claus Stargate. Oh, Stargate. I miss my Stargate. But this was a movie. I like the TV version better. There are those that like the movie version better. I like the TV version better. Pulp Fiction. The one and only movie I ever walked out on. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, The War, The Specialist, Forrest Gump was shown at the same time. And vampires neck and neck. Vampires co-stars make their mark. Mr. Cool is always in control. Age 32 at the time of this article. Well groomed, 80s go getter, his dazzling grin. Uh, he was power status was 22 in Hollywood. It's probably higher now. He has three sisters. His dad is an electrical engineer. He was raised Catholic, but now he's into Scientology and still into Scientology. Jumped on a couch in his underwear in risky business. You can see all this. Vampire says film has books bite. Looks as though Anne Rice fans have won over by the film of her interview with the vampire and by Tom Cruise's vampire Lestat. They say we approve, says the author of her loyal fans, but they're going to hold the film accountable. Rice sat on the curbside at New York Theater Friday waiting for readers' reactions. She fielding 20 plus calls daily from fans who've seen the show. She actually put a phone number in here for fans to call. 504-522-8634, which is probably long out of order. The main complaint she's hearing: the fans vampires don't cry blood-tinged tears. The movie makes clear choices to deviate from the book, and the departures didn't bother me, she says. When you love a movie, you forgive those things. Let's see. Interview with the Vampire sucked up 36.4 million at theaters around the country during the weekend, setting new records for the best non-summer opening and the best debut of an R-rated film. I'm pretty sure this has all changed since. They do hundreds of millions now. But of course, the price of the theater ticket has gone up. It was also the fifth highest three-day opening in box office history, behind Jurassic Park, Batman Returns, and The Lion King, and Indiana Jones. Ah, there she goes again. And my jeans are all white from dust. Oh, why does she always have to go off? She doesn't even tell time. Interview with a vampire. That doesn't even look like Tom Cruise. And why? Why is there a female? I guess it was to seductively lure people, but he hangs out with uh the guy. I wrote notes. Story told from Lewis' point of view. Can you see it? I see, said the vampire thoughtfully, and slowly he walked across the room towards the window. For a long time he stood there against the dim light from the Diversio street and the passing beams of traffic. The boy could see the furnishings of the room more clearly now. The round oak table, the chairs, a wash basin hung on one wall with a mirror. He set his briefcase on the table and waited. How much tape do you have with you? Asked the vampire, turning now to so the boy could see his profile. Enough for the story of a life? Sure, if it's a good one. Sometimes I interview as many as 3 or 4 people a night if I'm lucky, but it has to be a good story. That's only fair, isn't it? admirably fair, the vampire answered. I would like to tell you the story of my life. Then I would like to do that very much. Great, said the boy, and he quickly removed the small tape recorder from his briefcase, making a check of the cassette and the batteries. I'm really anxious to hear why you believe, why you... No, we can't begin that way. Is your equipment ready? Yes, said the boy. Then sit down. I'm going to turn on the overhead light. But I thought vampires didn't like light, said the boy. If you think the dark adds to the atmosphere, but then he stopped. Vampire was watching him with his back to the window. The boy could make out nothing of his face now, and something about the still figure there distracted him. He started to say something, but he said nothing, and then he sighed with relief when the vampire moved towards the table and reached for the overhead cord. At once the room was flooded with a harsh yellow light, and the boy staring up at the vampire could not repress a gasp. His fingers danced backward on the table, then he gazed speechless at the vampire. The vampire was utterly white and smooth, as if he was sculpted from bleached bone, and his face was brilliant green eyes with that looked down at the boy intently, like flames in a skull. But then the vampire smiled almost wistfully, and the smooth white substances of his lines moved with the infinitesimally flexible but minimal lines of a cartoon. Do you see? He said. So, it's book one. Anne Rice, Interview with the Vampire. Let's see what this one. I just wanted to. 1976. She paved the way for everyone else. I think Laurel started in the late 80s. I would have to check. Um, then the vampire Lestat. We get more of Lestat's story, and my copy is so old that it has split because I read it often. 1985. I need to fix this. This is going to drive me crazy now that the spine is broken. I am the vampire Lestat. I'm immortal. More or less, the light of the sun, the sustained heat of an intense fire. These things might destroy me, but then again, they might not. I am 6 feet tall, which was fairly impressive in the 1780s when I was a young mortal man. It's not bad now. I've thick blonde hair, not quite shoulder length, and rather curly, which appears white under fluorescent light. My eyes are gray, but they absorb the colors blue or violet easily from surfaces around them. And I have a fairly short, narrow nose and a mouth that is well shaped, but just a little too big for my face. I can look very mean or extremely gorgeous. My mouth, it always looks sensual, but emotions and attitudes are always reflected in my expression. I have a continuously animated face. My vampire nature reveals itself in extremely white and highly reflective skin that has to be powdered down for cameras of any kind. And if I'm starved for blood, I look like a perfect horror skin shuriken. Veins like ropes over the contours of my bones, but I don't let that happen now. And the only consistent indication that I am not human is my fingernails. It's the same with all vampires. Our fingernails look like glass. And some people notice that when they don't notice anything else. Right now, I'm what America calls a rock superstar. My first album sold 4 million copies. I'm going to San Francisco for the first spot on a nationwide concert tour that will take my band from coast to coast. MTV, the rock music cable channel, has been playing my video clips night and day for 2 weeks. They're also being shown in England on Top of the Pops and on the continent, probably in some part of Asia and in Japan. Video cassettes of the whole series of clips are selling worldwide. And now I'm publishing my biography. Uh, Queen of the Damned. Queen of the Damned. And it's got the fancy paper. When a publisher, I always say that when a publisher gives an author the fancy paper, they know the book is going to do well. Sherlyn Quinlan's Acheron has the fancy paper, and there's one or two of Laurel's that has the fancy paper. It's a little thicker paper. Uh, in 1976, a uniquely seductive world of vampires was unveiled in the now classic Interview with the Vampire in 1985. A wild and voluptuous voice spoke to us, telling the story of the vampire Lestat. And now Anne Rice continues her extraordinary vampire chronicles with Queen of the Damned. Akesha, is that who played the lady? The rock star known as Vampire Lestat, worshipped by millions of spellbound fans, prepares for a concert in San Francisco. Among the audience, pilgrims in a blind swoon of adoration, are hundreds of vampires, creatures who see Lestat as a greedy fiend risking the secret prosperity of all his kind just to be loved and seen by mortals. The sleep of certain men and women, vampires and mortals, scattered around the world, is haunted by a vivid, mysterious dream of twins with fiery red hair and piercing green eyes who suffer an unspeakable tragedy. It is a dream that slowly taunting reveals its meaning to the dreamers as they make their way toward each other, some to be destroyed on the journey, some to face an even more terrifying fate. Akesha, Queen of the Damned, mother of all vampires, rises after 6,000 years sleep and puts into motion a heinous plan to save mankind from itself and to make all the myths of the world real by elevating herself and her chosen son lover to the level of the gods. Uh, then he goes off a little bit. She goes off in a couple of weird directions. Tale of the Body Thief. In a new feat of hypnotic storytelling, Anne Rice continues the extraordinary vampire chronicles that began with the now classic Interview with the Vampire. And continued with Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned. Lestat speaks vampire hero, encounter, seducer of mortals. For centuries he has been a courted prince in the dark and flourishing universe of the living dead. Lestat is alone, and suddenly all his vampire rationale, everything he has come to believe and feel safe with, is called into question. In his overwhelming need to destroy his doubts and his loneliness, Vampire Lestat embarks on the most dangerous enterprise he has undertaken in all his years. I am freezing. Okay. I don't know how you got that. Ooh. Book 5. Memnoch, the Devil. Anne Rice's extraordinary new novel, The Vampire Lestat, Outsider, Candy Monster, Hero Wanderer, is at last offered the chance to redeem. He is brought into direct confrontation with both God and the devil and into the land of death, where in New York the city is blanketed in snow. Through the whiteness, Lestat is searching for Dora, the beautiful and charismatic daughter of a drug lord, the woman who arouses Lestat tenderness no mortal ever has. While torn between the vampire passions and his overwhelming love for Dora, Lestat is confronted by the most dangerous adversaries he has yet known. He is snatched from the world itself by the mysterious Memnoch, who claims to be the devil. He is invited to be witness at the creation. He is taken like the ancient prophets into the heavenly realm and ushered into purgatory. He must decide if he can believe in the devil or in God, and finally he must decide which he will serve. Later on, and I don't have those, I didn't buy those, but she did 2 books on Christ later on in her life. Um, the Vampire Ahmad. Vampire Ahmad. In the latest installment of Vampire Chronicles, Anne Rice summons up dazzling worlds to bring us the story of Ahmad. Eternally young with the face of Botticelli angel, Ahmad, who first appeared in all his glory more than 20 years ago in the now classic Interview with the Vampire, the first of the Vampire Chronicles, the novel that establishes author worldwide as magnificent storyteller and creator of magical realms. Now we go with Ahmad across the centuries to the Kiev Rus of his boyhood, a ruined city under Mongol dominion, and to the ancient Constantinople where Tartar raiders sell him into slavery. And in the magnificent palazzo in the Venice of Renaissance, we see him emotionally and intellectually thralled to the great vampire Marius, who masquerades among humankind as a mysterious reclusive painter, and who will bestow upon Ahmad the gift of vampire blood. Merrick. This is really good paper. Really good paper. Really good paper. What is that? Is that dust? There is dust on my book. In her mesmerizing new world, the author of the Vampire Chronicles and the Saga of the Mayfair Witches, which we'll get to in a minute, uh, demonstrates once again her gift for spellbinding storytelling in the creation of myth and magic. Here, in a magnificent tale of sorcery and the occult that makes for real for us hitherto unexplored world of witchcraft. At the center is the beautiful, unconquerable witch Merrick. She is descendant of the gens de Clore Libris, a society of New Orleans octoroons and quadroons steeped in the law and ceremony of voodoo, who reign in the shadowy world where African and French, the dark and the white, intermingle. Her ancestors are the great Mayfair witches of whom she knows nothing and from whom she inherits the power and magical of the circle. In this erotic realm comes David Talbot, hero, storyteller, adventurer, almost mortal vampire visitor from another dark realm. He reconnects Merrick's haunting tale, a tale that takes us from New Orleans of the past and present to the jungles of Guatemala. Interesting. The other one is missing too. I don't know what I did with it. I know I have it. All right. So, Blood and Gold. Blood and Gold. Um, this is on the good paper too. Oh wait, look. Nope. What did I think I saw? The Vampire Chronicles continue with Anne Rice's spellbinding novel in which the great vampire Marius returns. The golden haired Marius, true child of the millennia, once mentor to vampire Lestat, always and forever the conscientious foe of the evildoer, reveals in his own intense yet intimate voice the secrets of the 2,000-year existence. Once a proud senator, Imperial Rome, kidnapped and made a blood god by the Druids, Marius becomes the embittered protector of Akasha and Akil, king and queen of the vampires, in whom the core of the supernatural race resides. We follow him through his heart-breaking abandonment of the vampire Pandora. Through him we see the fall of pagan Rome to the Emperor Constantine and the horrific sack of Eternal City, itself at the hands of the Visigoths. Bravely Marius seeks a new civilization in the midst of glittering Constantinople, only to meet with the blood drinker Eurydice, who see him ultimately returning to his beloved Italy, where, after the horrors of the Black Death, he is restored by the beauty of the Renaissance. Blackwood. I still can't believe I'm missing two and they're upstairs. I think it's one of the small. No, not this one. Blackwood Farms. Blackwood Farms. Ah. Anne Rice's Blackwood Farm, her best in years. Anne Rice dedicated Blackwood Farm, the latest in the Vampire Chronicles, to her son Christopher. It was a move that could be damning or pathetic because it was certainly invites comparison with her novelist offspring, who, with the help of some strong editing, is becoming a sound storyteller in his own right. Mother Rice, on the other hand, seemed to have eschewed editing in the past decade and lost the firm grip she once had on a well-paced tale. Perhaps it was fortuitous that the son's latest novel, The Show Garden, was a work of gripping suspense because the mom appears to have recaptured the tale-telling spirit she lost years ago. Blackwood Farm is Anne Rice's best book in years. In fact, it may be necessary to go back to the initial trio of vampire novels to find one that flows with as much grace and continuity as this one. The pretense of the novel is a young blood hunter's appeal to the legendary Lestat to help him control a doppelganger named Goblin who is becoming increasingly violent. In the process, Quinn reveals his ties to Goblin, the maturation of both the history surrounding the family's Louisiana farm and his transformation by a vampire hermaphrodite. When Blackwood Farm turns philosophic, an approach that Rice used with the abandon in several previous vampire tales, it weaved deftly into the story without overbearing or preachy. Take this discussion of the value between Quinn's elderly aunt and Lestat. But you love books then, Aunt Queen, Aunt Queen was saying. I had to listen. Oh yes, Lestat said. Sometimes they're the only thing that keeps me alive. Blackwood Farms. Here. Uh, the oh look, it's still got the sticker on it. Anne Rice continues her astonishing vampire chronicles with the story of Lestat's passionate quest for redemption, goddess, and the love of Rowan Mayfair. Now she's one of the witches. Here are all the brilliantly conceived principal characters that make up Anne Rice's world of vampire and witches. Mona Mayfair, who's come to Blackwood Farm to die, and is instead brought into the realm of the undead. Rowan Mayfair, brilliant neurosurgeon and witch who finds herself dangerously drawn to Lestat. Her husband Michael Curry, hero of the Mayfair Chronicles, who seeks Lestat help with the temporary madness of his wife. Patsy, country western singer who returns to revenge her death at the hands of her son, Quinn Blackwood. See what happens there. Prince, Prince Lestat. Prince Lestat. I need to take those price tags off. From Anne Rice, perennial bestseller, single-handed reinventor of the vampire universe, and beginning with the now iconic Interview with the Vampire Lestat, and Queen of the Damned, a stunning departure, a surprising and compelling return, new, exhilarating novel that deepens Rice's vampire mythology and gives us a chilling, hypnotic, rich mystery thriller. In Prince Lestat, the long-awaited return to the all-encompassing realm of the Vampire Chronicles, Rice once again sums up the irresistible spirit world of the oldest and most powerful forces between heaven and earth, including indomitable and invisible ML, whose thirst for human blood gave birth to the horror of the immortal undead. Rice picks up where she left off more than a quarter of a century ago with the uniquely seductive Queen of the Damned and the vampire Lestat to create an extraordinary new sphere of spirits and forces, characters, legend, all of the Vampire Chronicles. Okay. And I just saw it. Right. I'm missing Prince Lestat and the Realm of Atlantis. I just couldn't get past Lestat and Atlantis. And then we have The Blood Communion, A Tale of Prince Lestat. Oh, this one's got a decoration. Please let the audio still be working. The Vampire Chronicles continue with a riveting, rich saga, part adventure, part suspense of Prince Lestat and the story of the Blood Communion as he tells of coming to rule the vampire world and the eternal struggle to find belonging, a place in the universe of the undead, and how, against his will, he must battle a menacing, seemingly unstoppable force determined to thwart his vision and destroy the entire vampire netherworld. In this spellbinding novel, Lestat, rebel outlaw, addresses the tribe of vampires directly, intimately, passionately, and tells the mesmerizing story of the formation of the Blood Communion and how he became prince of the vampire world, the true ruler of the vast realm, and how his vision for all the children of the universe to thrive as came to be. Check that out. Um, so then we have a spin-off. Let's see if this will work. Prince Lestat and the Realm of Atlantis. Prince Lestat and the Realm of Atlantis. Ah. From Anne Rice, conjurer of her beloved best-selling metaphysical tales, creator of mythologies and mythical ancient histories, an ambitious and rich new vampire novel of utopian vision, daring, and power. At the novel's center, the vampire Lestat de Lioncourt, hero, leader, inspirer, irresistible force, irresistible spirit, battling and ultimately reconciling with a strange otherworldly from that has somehow taken possession of his undead body and his soul. This ancient and mysterious power and unearthly spirit of vampire lore has all the force, history, and insidious reach of the unknown universe. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I found it. Please let the audio still be working. Please let the audio still be working. Okay. So then we did some witches. So the witching hour, the witching hour, not fancy paper, and a gift, a gift from the grandparents. The author in Extraordinary Vampire Chronicles interviewed the vampire Lestat, and the Queen of the Damned gives us now a huge hypnotic novel of witchcraft and occult through 4 centuries. Demonstrating once again her gift for spellbinding storytelling and the creation of a legend, Anne Rice makes real for us a great dynasty of witches. Um, a family proven to poetry and incest, to murder, to philosophy, a family that over the ages is being itself haunted by a powerful, dangerous, and seductive being. On the veranda of a great New Orleans house, now faded, a mute and fragile woman sits rocking, and the witching hour begins. It begins in our time with a rescue at sea. Rowan Mayfair, a beautiful woman, a brilliant practitioner of neurosurgery, aware that she has special powers but unaware that she comes from an ancient line of witches, finds the drowned body of a man off the coast of California and brings him to life. He is Michael Curry, who was born in New Orleans and orphaned in childhood by fire on Christmas Eve, who pulled himself up from poverty and who now is, in his brief interval of death, has acquired a sensory power that mystifies and frightens him. Lasher. Please let my audio still be working. Please let my audio still be working. Lasher. Lasher. From her first Vampire Chronicles was publicized, critics and readers by the hundreds of thousands have memorized by the writings of Anne Rice, and with the publication of The Witching Hour, she has created yet another world and legend. At the center of the brilliant and beautiful Rowan Mayfair, Queen of the Coven, and Lasher, the darkly compelling demon, whom she finds irresistible, from whose evil spell and vision she must now flee, she takes with their terrifying and exquisite child, one of a brood of children born knowing, able to stand and talk on the first day. Altos. The legend-building storytelling power that won Anne Rice her millions of devoted readers is enthralled present in Taltos. Her new novel contains the epic of the Mayfair witches, the hypnotic saga of the occult that began with the Witching Hour and Lasher. Meet Mr. Ash, quiet-spoken, tall, unfailingly kind, sole survivor of an ancient species, the Taltos thriving among humankind as he has always done. Now the head of a great corporate empire, as the novel opens, he is stunned to learn from an old and mysterious friend that another Taltos has seen in the very same Scottish glen, where centuries ago, long before the coming of the Romans, Ash ruled his clan. Then we had some vampire spin-offs. Pandora. Pandora. Got the fancy paper. Anne Rice, creator of the Vampire Lestat, the Mayfair Witches, the Amazing Worlds they inhabit, now gives us the first in a new series of novels linked together by the fledgling vampire David Talbot, who has set out to become a chronicler of his fellow undead. The novel opens in present-day Paris in a crowded cafe where David meets Pandora. She is 2,000 years old, a child of millennia, the first vampire ever made by the great Marius. David persuades her to tell the story of her life. Vitoro. Vitoro. With Pandora and Rice began a magnificent new series of new vampire novels. Now, in the second of her new Tales of the Vampire, she tells the mesmerizing story of Vittorio, a vampire in the Italian Age of Gold. Educated in Florence of Cosme de' Medici, trained in the knighthood at his father's mountain-top castle, Vittorio inhabits a world of courtly splendor and pleasures, a world suddenly threatened when his entire family is confronted by the unholy power. Then we got off track a little. I don't seem to have the other one. I thought I'm pretty sure this is part of the. Let's just do this last one, okay. So then she goes to Ramses the Mummy or Ramses the Damned, but but having drunk the elixir of life, he is now Ramses the Damned, doomed forever to wander the earth, desperate to quell hunger that can never be satisfied for food, for wine, for women. Reawakened in an opulent Edwardian London, he becomes Dr. Ramsay, expert in Egyptology. He also becomes the close companion of voluptuous adventurer Julie Stratford, heiress to a vast shipping fortune and the center of a group of jaded aristocrats with appetites of their own to appease. Let's just do The Servant of the Bones. A new saga begins, a major departure for the incomparable Anne Rice, having created fantastic universes of vampires and witches, having chronicled the exploits of Lestat and Mayfairs. Uh, Azrael, servant of the bones. He is ghost, demon, angel, in love with good, enthralled to evil. He pours out his heart to tell us his astonishing story when he finds himself in our own time, New York City, a day's witness to the murder of a young girl called Esther and explicitly obsessed by the desire to adventure. He takes us back to the mortal youth and the magnificent city of Babylon, the gateway to the pagan gods, a wonder of ziggurats, shrines, and ships, an anchor from all nations. Okay. Uh, the violin. The violin. Think At the novel's center, uniquely fascinating woman Triana, who once dreamed of becoming a great musician, and the demonic fiddler Stefan, tormented ghost of Russian aristocrat who begins to prey upon her, using his magic violin to enchant, then to dominate and draw her into an state of madness through the music she loves. Okay. Then I I've got let me just do these two before. What year is this? This has got to be part two. All right. Then, out of nowhere, Anne Rice decides to go to the Wolf venue. Werewolves were massive, massive popular. They were starting to get their own TV shows and stuff like that. Um, who was it? Somebody had. Oh, one of my authors had the show. Oh, I can't remember who it was. One of my. It was a TV show. It lasted a couple of seasons. And, God, it was one of my good authors too. It wasn't Carrie. No, it wasn't her. I would have remembered. It's one of my lesser authors, but I know it existed. All right, so she went the wolf way. The wolf gift. The wolf gift. A daring new departure from the inspirator creator of the Vampire Chronicles. A whole new world, modern, sleek, high-tech, and at the center as a story as old and compelling as history. The making of the werewolf, reimagined and reinvented as only Anne Rice, teller of mesmerizing tales, could do. The place in the rugged coast of Northern California, a bluff high above the Pacific, a grand mansion full of beauty and tantalizing history set against a towering red forest. A young reporter on assignment from the San Francisco Observer, an older woman welcoming him into the magnificent family home that he has been sent to write about, and she must tell with some urgency an encounter between two unlikely people, an idyllic night shrouded by horrific, unimaginable violence, the young man inexplicably attacked, bitten by a beast he cannot see in the roll of darkness. And she followed it up with book two, The Wolf Gift Chronicles, The Wolf of Midwinter. And this has got the fancy paper. In Anne Rice's surprising and compelling best-selling novel, the first of her strange and mythic imaginings of the world of Wolf and Paris, I devour these pages, as solid and engaging as anything she has written since her early vampire chronicles. Now in her new novel, a lush and romantic in detail and atmosphere, it is sleek and steely in its storytelling. Anne Rice takes us once again to the rugged coastline of Northern California, to the grand mansion at Nickdale Point, and further explores the unearthly education of a transformed man-wolf. Okay. Now we're just going to do these last couple briefly. Anne Rice, oh, I gotta fix this. It's ripped. This is the young Anne Rice. Really young. Really young. I've got to fix this. She wrote as Belinda. Anne Rappling, excuse me. Jeremy Walker is 44, handsome, refined, and a world famous for his lavishly illustrated children's book. He would seem to have it all when he is suddenly seduced by a beautiful and ferocious 16-year-old runaway named Belinda. Innocent as little girls he paints, yet passionate as any woman he has ever known, Belinda becomes his elegant muse and lover. Okay. Then the book is better than the movie, and the book is a lot better than the movie because they took the movie silly and it just didn't work and it was horrible. Rosie was the lead actress in the movie, and it just didn't. If they had adult filmed it, it might have worked, but they went the silly route. Exit to Eden. It's a hardcore BDSM, is what I'll say. And it's light compared to these. These are something else. They are extremely hardcore erotica. The first of the acclaimed series of erotic adventures of Sleeping Beauty. The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty. The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty. Very, very hardcore. In the traditional folktale of Sleeping Beauty, the spell cast upon the lovely young prince and everyone in her castle only can be broken by the kiss of the prince. In an ancient story, one that originally emerged from and deeply disturbs the mind unconscious, now Anne Rice's retelling of Beauty probes the unspoken indication of luck's suggestive tale by exploring undeniable connection to sexual desire. The further erotic adventures of Sleeping Beauty, Beauty's punishment, and how she gets whipped. We won't go into this. If we ever do a hot, these are on the hot list. The conclusion of erotic adventures of Sleeping Beauty, Beauty's release. Beauty's release. And that is the end of Anne Rice for October. Please, Lord God, let my audio have continued all the way through. Fingers crossed. Otherwise, we'll be merging with the backup over here, but I really want you to work. Yeah, please check out my Stock Next Generation recaps on Fridays, my If Thens on Fridays, and my Flashback Mondays. And I'm going to do a few more Halloweens for the next couple weeks on Saturdays. We'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed it all works out. If you could please hit the like and subscribe, I'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this gave you some insight to Anne Rice.